Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Full Court Press, an extension of Five on the Floor. We talk general NBA with kind of a little bit of an eye for some analytics and some numbers here and there, as well as the eye test, which we will most likely defer to the great Marco Romo, who is with me tonight. I am Gabriel Cartagena. I'm joined by the great Marco Romo and my guy at Ariel Atias. So we're going to chop it up. We're going to talk general NBA, right? There's going to be a lot of different conversation to be had because there's so much that goes on in this beautiful association. And no conversation may be bigger this year, especially from an individual standpoint, than the MVP conversation, right? The MVP conversation is something that it feels like every time you refresh Twitter, you see someone saying, oh, if this person is not in your MVP conversation, then you're not having a real conversation. And I know Heat Twitter is victim to that. There's tons of fan bases that will just tweet out their best player, and that is who deserves to be in the MVP conversation. Like, at some point, we probably had De'Aaron Fox in the MVP conversation at some point throughout this year. But I do want to get your opinions on this. Marco, I will start with you. If you, maybe your favorite and then a dark horse, who are you looking at for the MVP convo right now?
Well, all right, we're getting right into it, mofos. I think I would go Jokic right now. I'm starting. Everybody's going to say, like, it's the games thing that he has an advantage over because he's played, like, the most games. He hasn't missed a game at all. Like that's underrated. Like, the fact that he's, like, an Iron Man like, in this kind of season, even though, look, he's not an iron at all. He's made of, like, pillows. But he's still able to, like, play every night. And he's putting up, like, these are insane numbers, like 27, 10, and 8. That's, like, with, like, 63% effective field goal percentage. That's, like, bonkers stuff. That's, like, what guards do. But, like, he's doing it even more efficiently than that. Like, Russell Westbrook, like, his MVP year, he did this kind of thing. And, you know, he was fourth place. You know, most guys don't get MVP who are that low in terms of seeding. But I guess the teams are just so bunched up. And nobody's going to give it to Chris Paul as much as I love Chris Paul. You know, he's been awesome. It's just, I think it's Jokic all the way right now. And I feel like I did hear Mark Jones yesterday. I was watching the Dunker Spot. Shout out to Nikias and Steve Jones Jr. They were interviewing him. He said that he actually would go with Embiid, despite, you know, the games and all that, because of the defensive impact that Joel has. I just think that Jokic's defense is fine enough. Like, he said that he saw him get subbed out a lot this year. I think Jokic, I don't know, I haven't seen that as much this year. In years past, he used to get, like, beaten off the court with his slow feet. But now they're playing a better, like, drop zone. Like, they help off of their guy pretty well, and they don't let Jokic get destroyed in the pick and roll anymore. He's passable, and I think that passableness isn't like Trae Young level bad, where it's going to affect his like MVP candidacy. I did, however, like, and he would be like the first true center to like win this thing since like Shaq maybe like 2001 or 2000 actually. But I guess if you could go with like Dirk Nowitzki back in 2007, but you know, he was like a power forward center guy who, I don't know, I guess you could count him. And even if you do, that's still like 14 years. That's like old enough to drive. So I think that's still Jokic's to win right now. Either way, we're going to get a big man winning the award. So shout out to the 90s.
Yeah, both top candidates right now are Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. And I mean, Embiid has been dominant, but like you said, like the Iron Man ability of Nikola Jokic right now is truly unbelievable, right? And he's also been doing it without Jamal Murray. Ariel, is Jokic your guy as well?
Yep. I'm going to go Nikola Jokic as well. I really want to make an argument the other way for Joel Embiid, but it's hard for me to do it when I genuinely don't really believe in it. I think Joel Embiid has been spectacular this season when he's been healthy and available. He's led the Sixers to, are they first? Yeah, they have the best record in the East. He's missed some time, but truly when he's been on the court, he's been absolutely unstoppable. But Nikola Jokic, man. I mean, like Marco said, the guy's averaging 26 and a half, 11 boards, a shade under 9 assists, 1.5 steals, almost a block. He's shooting 57% from the field, 85 from the line, 41 from three. He's been unbelievable. He is a one-man offense on his own. That's been evidenced right in the 4 games since Jamal Murray's been out. They've won all 4 games the Nuggets have. He's averaging 29.5 points per game, 12.5 rebounds, and 8 assists in those games. Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets are a plus 339 plus minus cumulatively this season with him on the court. That is ridiculous. He is an absolute one-man offense on his own, and he is the single reason why I think they're going to be able to stay afloat and remain in that 4-5 spot, even without Jamal Murray. A lot of the other guys on the team are going to have to take more of an offensive burden, and of course Nikola Jokic is going to have to increase the usage rate and have to do a little bit more for them. But I think he's capable of it. He's been the best player in the NBA this season, so it's got to be him, in my opinion.
Yeah, his overall impact, like you said, one-man offense is really the perfect way to describe Jokic. He's truly someone that is still keeping them afloat. And like, I love Facu, but Facu is pretty much like one of their main guards right now, with Jamal Murray being out. And like, they absolutely annihilated the Heat when they played them, just because Jokic brings that kind of talent. He elevates so many other people. So I love the Nikola Jokic pick. I also believe that he should be the MVP for all the reasons that you guys said. Now I want to transition over to a different conversation, right? The DPOY conversation, I think, is not so much of a front runner as people have made it out to be on Twitter. I believe the top 3 right now is Rudy Gobert, Ben Simmons, and Bam Adebayo. Now, Marco, I don't know if you would actually pick Bam, but I believe you did write an article on making the case, right? So what exactly was in that article, and do you think Bam has a realistic claim to win it this season?
I think realistically, probably not. I think my main thing with the piece that I had wanted people to take away was at least put him in the conversation. I think it's been absolutely disrespectful that he hasn't been in the conversation. Like, up until, I guess, the past week, like NBA.com's DPOY letter finally included him in the top 3. Like, I was like tired of seeing Miles Turner in there. I was like, I know Miles is a fine defender, but he doesn't do all the things that Bam does. And that was shout out to Andrew Green. Thank you for that donation. Thanks for supporting the team. But yeah, my thing is like give him in the conversation. It's disrespectful not having him in there because of just how much he does for Miami. Like he's the main ingredient to what makes Miami's defense even like passable sometimes. Whenever he has guys like. Whenever they play a lineup of Dragic, Nunn, and Hero, it's only passable if you have Bam Adebayo out there. Like, he's the guy that makes the offense change their game plan. There's a big that can switch onto whoever or whatever pick and roll you want to run. And, like, each team, that's their main thing, is they want to run a pick and roll. That's, like, the easiest thing. And Bam can just take that away very easily. And now you see that with teams, they're trying to run the pick and roll to get advantages now because Bam's like he's so willing to switch, but like that's a good problem to have whenever your center is like so good at switching out. The teams are actually wanting to use that to their advantage, and even then, it's still like a hard thing to grasp because teams don't all have Nikola Jokic or Joel Embiid to like force those kind of mismatches because post ups are generally a really inefficient shot. Unless you have a guy like Jokic or Embiid who can get that shot effectively. So I think the kind of havoc that Bam makes offenses run is underrated. Like he changes the entire offensive game plan of some opponents, and it's like marvelous to watch every night. And like it's underrated to me. Like give him in the conversation at least. I think he's going to win one in the future. But I'm tired of the disrespect of not having him in the conversation.
Yeah, like you'll see on Twitter, there's people just completely disregarding Bam Adebayo as even like in that conversation. He is squarely in that conversation. Arrow, you're shaking your head right now. Your thoughts on this entire conversation?
I'm shaking my head, but I genuinely agree with everything Marco said. I wanted to make the Bam argument, but I think he hit the nail on the head in terms of all the different things that Bam's able to do for the Heat's defense. If we're being realistic, the Heat were not a great defensive team last year, and they have a lot of the same personnel as they did last year. The fact that they are 6th in the NBA in defensive rating, they're a top 3 team in a point. They're a top 3 team in opponents' points per game allowed. They're an excellent field goal percentage defensive team. Like all around, just a great defensive team. And I think a lot of that is due to Bam. Real quick before we keep going, Christian Cardis, thank you for both of those $2 donos. We appreciate you. Give me Bam plus Splash Crackers over Brick Clemens any day. Listen, hey, I'm with you in terms of I'd rather have Bam, but I'm not here to slander Ben Simmons, as fun as it might be sometimes to slander the Sixers. If we're being completely unbiased here, Ben Simmons is a fantastic defender. So since Marco Roma went Bam out of bio, I'm going to go Ben Simmons just to give another perspective here. He's averaging 1.5 steals per game, half a block, but his individual defensive rating is 106.7. That's really good. An average defensive rating is, I believe, about 110 in the NBA. So that's a really, he's just a spectacular defender. His defensive field goal percentage in terms of what he holds the guys that he guards to is 41.7% from the field. He has a defensive box plus minus of 1.8. So the Sixers are second in the NBA in defensive rating. They're 7th in opponents' points per game allowed and 4th in opponents' field goal percentage allowed. So a lot of that is due to Ben Simmons. He can switch onto just about anybody on the court. He's not elite down low, but he's not at all like a poor defender in any area, especially on the perimeter. He's just spectacular. He can absolutely shut you down. We see him hound guys. He'll switch all over the court, like I said. So I think based on that and the fact that it's kind of the sexier name, the media would be more likely to lean Ben Simmons or perhaps Rudy Gobert, whom I believe you can make an argument for. But in my personal opinion, he's a drop big. He primarily defends at the rim, and he is elite at it. He is the best in the NBA at that. He completely shuts off the paint and takes that area of the game away from you. And though it is a regular season award, in a playoff setting, that's something that you can scheme against. If you have guards and wings who are really good off the pick and roll at pulling up from the mid-range, from the 3-point line, and getting to their shot, that's something you can take advantage of with regards to Rudy, because he's usually going to be sitting in the paint. He's not lost in space, though. He can switch, though it's not something they want to do frequently because he's so long and he has decent mobility. You know, he can catch up to a guard who gets by him and still recover in time to make a block and make a play at the rim. But there are no weaknesses as far as Ben Simmons go defensively. Same for Bam Adebayo. So those would be my 2 top guys. But I feel like Rudy might get it anyways because it's just a sexier pick.
Yeah, I mean, also the thing with Rudy that makes him so elite is he's the most elite at rim protection in the NBA. But in the regular season, that's also the most valuable defensive trait to have, right? Like the game plan defensively is how do we score on Rudy? And you have to try to do like pull-up shots, like you said, against the drop. You have to be a good 3-point shooting team because Rudy honestly is just not going to let a lot of points in the paint happen. So I think Rudy, given the team's success, is definitely going to have a really good claim at winning it. I would love to see Bam be in that conversation more, but I just, like you guys said, I don't know if he has the name cachet around him right now to really fortify himself in that conversation. Maybe he has a few more highlights on primetime. I don't know how many more times that he play on primetime, but like it seems like after everyone watched him against Kyrie, they're like, whoa, wait, Bam's kind of special on defense. But he hasn't had that many chances to do that as opposed to Ben Simmons or Rudy Gobert, who everyone's just watching them play defense because that's what they hang their hat on already. I'm kind
of tired of the big defensive center winning
yes.
DPOY every
Preach.
Day. It's like I get it. Rudy Gobert is protecting the rim. Like he's really good at it and all that. I'm just like I'm kind of tired of it in general.
Ask Chris Paul how scared he is of Rudy Gobert at the rim because he goes at him every single time they play. The floaters in the lane. He's just not afraid of Rudy Gobert. Look, Rudy Gobert, like we said, is a spectacular defender, but there are ways to take advantage of the way that he plays defense. So, you know, if you've got guards that are really good in the mid-range and like to get into that pull-up jumper when the opponent's playing drop, that's there all day long. Rudy's spectacular, and I think that like Marco was hinting at, like he kind of fits the traditional mold of the type of player that would win DPOY in that he's that big who just protects the paint and anchors the defense. So Hassan, Defensive Player of the Year. Christian Cardis, I don't think so, buddy. We're not going to do that
a few years back, right? A few years back, Bam might have been in that conversation. Yeah, I mean, the DPOY conversation is so fun to talk about. I think now that there's really like a top 3, and I mean, you could throw Giannis into that conversation. He's been fantastic on the defensive end as well. But I feel like people are there's voter fatigue with Giannis regarding Giannis with MVP and DPOY. Like, that is just pretty much where we're at. I think it's going to be really hard for him to win that award both times 3 years in a row. It's just something doesn't really happen much more. Marco, we'll give this one to you. What's your top 5 DPOY besides these 3? Putting yourself on the spot here.
All right, so I have those 3 as the top 3. And I guess I would go after that. It's so hard because so many guys have missed like so many games. I'm going to give you with a curveball. I'm going to say 5. The 5th guy here is, I'm going to say Drew Holiday.
Okay.
That's a curveball. I feel like he's changed what they do on defense so much. And like he hounds guards. Like I want him to shut down Trae Young to like the point that he got visibly frustrated about it. And I was like, dang, this guy is like so good. And he changes so much of what they want to do. And like 4th, I'm going to probably go with Miles Turner because he was still being like really, really good beforehand. I also could see an argument for DeAndre Ayton in the same way that people have argued for Miles Turner because of just how their mere presence in the rim or at the paint affects teams. But I'm going to go with Miles, even though, you know, he's going to be out for quite a while. But it's just so many people that have gotten hurt this year. I don't put that really against him. The same way I don't put it against Embiid as much. But I guess the MVP award is like a different category its own. So I'll say Ben, Bam, Rudy, not in that order. Drew, and Embiid. Forget about Miles Turner. I just remembered about Embiid.
Yeah, Embiid is a beast on defense. Like that is what makes part of what makes Philadelphia so scary defensively is they have Ben Simmons and Embiid, and both of those guys play different roles defensively that they work together, and like the cohesion between the way that they play defense is really special, and they can make a lot of noise on the defensive end. No TJ McConnell love. I'm shocked after him being on the DPOY ladder for multiple weeks after hounding Tyler Hero for one game. He's special.
Stealing inbounds passes. Like he's like one of the best inbound stealers of like all time. It's crazy.
He's a
good defender, but he shouldn't be there.
Right. In that first game where they came to Miami and I think they spanked the Heat, the Heat guards literally could not get that ball across half court without TJ McConnell making them take up 7 seconds of the 8 seconds available, or stealing the ball in the backcourt, or making them pick up the ball and pass it out of the backcourt. Like he is just a hound. But I agree. I don't think like this, the defensive player of the year talk should be reserved for guys who can have a tangible, legitimate impact across multiple positions, in my opinion, defensively. So to me, yes, TJ McConnell is a very pesky defender. He is a good defender. I am not knocking him at all. But there's only one guy on the court that he's consistently guarding. It's the other team's smaller guard. That's generally what it is. You're not putting him on bigger 2 guards. You're not putting him on wings. So I don't think he belongs in there.
We got a comment here. Shout out Morks. Actually, I want to go to the first one, Manny. Thoughts on the Raptors. So the Raptors are currently half a game out of the play-in. They opted not to trade Kyle Lowry, and they got rid of Norman Powell, getting Gary Trent. Do you guys have any opinion on how the Raptors are approaching this post-trade deadline madness for them?
I guess I don't get it. It looks like they want to tank. Like the lineups that they're putting out there are wild. They're playing Freddie Gillespie. I don't know if you guys even know who that is. Probably not, because I barely knew who he was. He did go to Baylor. Yeah, and I was like, okay, they're trying to tank? Exactly. They're trying to tank, though, but they're like, Masai Ujiri's like, but I brought Kyle Lowry back because I guess we could have made the play-in tournament, but it doesn't even look like they're trying to play for the play-in tournament. We can probably segue into that later. And I have a problem with, like, if you're going to bring him back, you're just wasting another year of this guy that you held so highly in regards to, like, your team's, like, franchise. And I'm like, really? You brought him back just to not even try? You're probably going to lose him in the off season. Maybe. Yeah. I just don't get it.
Yeah, what they did was kind of counterintuitive. Like, I like that they're getting guys like Malachi Flynn minutes because he's someone that could end up being a pretty good player in the NBA. And they've had a good history of developing those smaller guards into pretty special players. But at the same time, they've won 4 straight. They somehow have a positive point differential. I think it's because they had that like 60-point win against the Raptors or against the Warriors. But it was really, really weird that they didn't trade Lowry. That, to me, just still doesn't really make much sense. unless he's staying in the offseason. But I don't think like this is the perfect opportunity for them to full on tank, right? Like you're not playing in your hometown. You have a bunch of players ravaged by injury, and you have like big name expiring free agents that you can move. So it didn't really make sense to me, Ariel. And you're actually from Canada and you live in Canada. Any specific thoughts on what the Raptors are doing right now?
So I'll just make the devil's advocate argument here. I mean, I hear what you guys are saying. I had the same opinions around the trade deadline, but the more it sits with me, I mean, he is a tremendously important player to that team, that fan base, and the culture that they have there, right? He's considered the best player in the Raptors franchise history, and for good reason. He's been a leader for years on that team. And frankly, I would imagine that there is a chance that they're at least considering bringing him back. I guess it would depend on the price point and how the team shapes up for next year. So I'm not really going to speculate on that. But look, he's a really good player. There's something to be said for, regardless of whether or not you're necessarily a championship team and you expect to win a championship in whatever year, having, players that have been around the team, that are regarded as leaders, that, help carry the culture. We're all Miami Heat fans. So, I mean, we should all be able to relate to this.
Yes.
That carry the culture of the team and keeping them around. So I guess it'll depend on the price point. It did seem a little bit weird that they didn't move him at the deadline. It seemed like he was ready to move on as well. But listen, they kept him, and I know that Raptor fans are really happy. Like the timeline was pretty sad when it seemed like Kyle Lowry had played his last game and he kind of waved goodbye to the camera and all that after the game. So I'm kind of happy for Raptor fans, to be honest with you. I'm kind of happy about it.
Of course you are. You're Canadian. I would expect nothing less from you. Christian Cardus, thank you for letting me know that I actually botched Malachi Flynn. I don't know why I said Malachi. It's Malachi. You are absolutely 100% right. So I don't know where that came from, but we'll keep moving forward. Let's talk about the play-in actually, because the Raptors are one of the teams that could be in the play-in. Right now, the 4 teams that are currently in the play-in is 7, the Miami Heat, 8, the Charlotte Hornets, 9, the Indiana Pacers, 10, the Washington Wizards, and less than 1 full game out is both the Toronto Raptors and the Chicago Bulls. So which of these teams, Ariel, I'll start with you. Which of these teams is the most dangerous in a play-in game and could actually maybe make noise in the playoffs?
I feel like the correct answer is probably Toronto, but I'm actually going to go Washington because I think that in a short sample size, in a 2-game sample size, right? Because if you're in the 9 or 10 spot, you've got to win 2 games to get into the playoffs. In that small a time frame, a guy like Bradley Beal, perhaps even Russell Westbrook, but I'm really looking at Bradley Beal, can absolutely carry a team to victory. The Wizards are not a good roster. They don't have a good team. Let's just put that out there. But Russ has been on an absolute tear, as the comments are saying right now. He's been on an absolute tear. The dude puts up triple doubles in his sleep. It's kind of ridiculous. He's never been the most efficient player. And so historically that hasn't really led or been conducive to building championship or even just playoff success teams. But man, Bradley Beal is just ridiculous. He's such a high level of player that if I'm a Heat fan or if I'm a Hornets fan, who I believe are in the 8 spot right now, I don't want to see Bradley Beal in a play-in game. Like, absolutely not. That dude can win a game single-handedly. So I think just based on that, like all of those teams in that 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 area are flawed. None of them are perfect teams. None of them really have anything that you can say, oh, like that's why they're going to definitely win that 1 or 2 play-in games. But as far as, Bradley Beal and the Wizards go, he's the one player that scares me the most in that area. So I would probably go with the Wizards.
Oh, very, very interesting that you go with the Wizards. Marco, your thoughts?
I'm gonna go West. I'm gonna go West for the West play-in tournament, if that's okay.
Ooh, okay.
I'm gonna say the Warriors are the obvious answer, and it's obvious the answer why. Steph Curry. You don't want to play that man, and if you're the 1 or 2 seed, I would love to watch Rudy Gobert chase him around, like trying to defend him. It's insane what the run he's on. Like, I didn't get to point this out in his MVP candidacy, but it's very similar to Dwayne Wade's back in 2008. He's like carrying a mediocre squad out there. The only difference is that Dwayne wasn't in the like tail end of his prime. He was in the middle of his prime. So that's why like Warriors fans are so mad about like them wasting this like last few years of Steph's prime, because he's putting up like he had 72 threes in 10-game stretch, which was a record. He had 30. He has 30 or more points in 11 straight games or in an 11 game stretch just recently. He has 8 games of 40 or more. The next closest person this year is at 5. He has 6 games of 10 or more threes this year. Nobody in their career has more than that, other than Clay, who has 5 of those games, and that's throughout his career. So it's like, like he's absolutely on a tear right now, and I get why like nobody would want to play him for like a first round series. Like if you're the Jazz, you don't want to see that. You don't want to defend that. The thing they had to go through is the play-in tournament, which is insane that that's even in the conversation, that they're not good enough to get past it. But it's just their squad is really mediocre. You can't like rely so much on Kelly Oubre Jr. every night. Like he should be your 4th best player at the least, because he's like some nights he has to be their second leading scorer if Andrew Wiggins' shot isn't going, which I will give Andrew Wiggins his props because the dude's been like pretty good this year. You know, like it's a career year for him. I like that he's putting it all together. You know, shout out to Chef Turley. You know, he's defending his butt off out there. He's like a really good defender, actually.
Great.
Yeah, and I give him his props, but Steph still has to carry that team like every night. If he's not scoring 40, they're more than likely going to be in a nail biter at the end of the game if they get lucky. But yeah, I wanted to make sure that I brought up Steph's numbers. But yeah, I wouldn't want to see the Warriors out in the West. Out in the East, I guess at this moment it would be the Heat. That's my bias, but I don't think they're going to end up in the play-in tournament, which is why I get why Ariel actually went with the Wizards. But in the East, I'll probably say, wow. If Boston gets down there, I guess Boston. It's whoever out of the current 3-4 like teams that are like battling for the 4th and 5th spot that don't get into there. I think they're going to be the most dangerous team in that play-in tournament. But other than that, I think I'd go with the Warriors in the West, and I guess right now the Heat in the East.
You guys didn't mention.
I actually want to ask you guys, like, in the play-in tournament, do you guys even know how that thing works? Because I barely know how the heck that thing works. Okay,
yeah.
It's so confusing.
So this is how it works. 7 plays 8, 9 plays 10. The winner of 7 versus 8 moves forward, and they are the 7 seed. The loser of the 7-8 game plays the winner of the 9 versus 10 game. The winner of that is the 8 seed. Does that make sense?
Okay, it only makes sense to me because I looked it up, but that wouldn't have made sense to me earlier.
It is a little bit complicated for sure. Yeah. I do want to offer a little bit of pushback, Marco. Just not really pushback, but I have a question. So you said that Warriors fans are, a little bit up in arms, understandably, because it feels like they're definitely wasting an absolute peak Steph Curry year. And I agree with that. But do we not feel like he has multiple years left at this level, given the way that we probably expect his game to age?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think he probably has another, until he's, at least 40. He can probably play when he's, 42 as just a spot-up guy. It's easily. But I think with Warriors fans, because I follow quite a few of them on my timeline, with their thing is the messaging behind the franchise and, the front office and the coaching staff. They keep putting out this message that we're not trying to compete. You don't want to hear that from anybody.
Yeah.
You would never hear that out of Miami. Even during, the Deion Waiters years. They always said they wanted to compete for, at least the playoffs. You hear Warriors fans get mad because they're saying, you hear Steve Kerr in postgame saying, we're not trying to win now. We know you're not a championship caliber team, but you can't be saying that. And that's where a lot of frustration comes from Warriors fans, because then that makes it feel more explicit that you're wasting another Steph year like this, and also why you haven't done anything with the help or to help around him, and all the stuff that you've swung and missed on including your rookie pick, which I don't fault James Wiseman for. Like, he's been put in a really bad position. It's just the frustration around the moves that don't speak to what the front office is saying.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense. I do want to offer one before we get into the things we like around the league. I do want to offer one team. I think the Charlotte Hornets, when they would be healthy with Gordon Hayward and LaMelo Ball, could actually become a pretty sneaky team in the play-in. And if I were a team that is, say, the 1 seed, like Philadelphia, obviously I think Philadelphia wins that series probably pretty handily, but they'd be such an annoying team to play. They really, really would, because they play beautiful basketball. If you guys have watched Charlotte play, when they're at full strength, it is truly fun to watch. Like Charlotte, I know I'm a Heat fan, but like I like watching Charlotte play basketball because they play it the right way. Like it's ball movement, they're having fun, and outside of Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham, they don't really take bad shots. Like it's really just ball movement, hitting the corner shot, or getting a cutter, or Miles Bridges just going absolutely crazy. I do like what they're building in Charlotte. I would like to see their team fully healthy. That would obviously be really interesting. Really quick, before we get into the one thing we like around the league, I was just perusing through the stats, and I came across this number, which I actually thought was pretty crazy. On players who have 2 or more isolation possessions per game, who do you think would be the number 1 player in terms of points per possession? Marco, you're thinking.
I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to give you 3 guesses. Is that okay?
Yeah, I have the top 5, so if you guess, let's run it. Let's run it.
All right, I got Jokic as 1. I guess, do isolation possessions count as post-ups and vice versa?
I don't think so. I think that is a different.
Okay. So I'll say Jokic 1 because he does a lot of face-up stuff. Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Jason Tatum. There, that's 4. I don't know why I gave
you
4.
got 0 correct of the top 5. 0. Ariel.
That's tough. Okay, I'm gonna go James Harden, Kyrie Irving.
Kyrie is number 3.
Luka.
Nope.
Dame.
Nope. CJ McCollum.
Did you go Embiid, Marco?
No, I was going to, but I was like,
Embiid is number 5 on this list, which it truly speaks to how crazy he is, because isolation possessions are typically not that efficient, and he's getting 1.12 points per possession as a 7-foot, 280-pound center. Like Embiid is truly special. Like that's crazy. But so no more guesses on number 1. Anyone in the comments? None of you guys have gotten number 1 yet. You've come close. Some of you have got Kyrie. No more guesses as to who's number 1.
All right, give me West or East.
West.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna go Tyler Hero.
Let's see, is that Steph? Wow.
Not Steph. He's not even in the top 5.
Oh,
There's 41 players eligible for this list, by the way. So it's not like it's too small of a list.
Okay. Zion?
Nope.
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
All right, Booker is my last guess. I've got nobody else.
Nope. Number 1 in the NBA at 1.23 points per possession in isolation is DeMar DeRozan.
Wow.
Dang.
DeMar DeRozan by honestly a sizable margin. Number 2, being another Brooklyn Net, is actually Kevin Durant at 1.18. So DeMar DeRozan is like, credit to him, man. He's one hell of an ISO player. It's the mid-range, and he doesn't even take threes. That's the craziest part. He's doing this without taking threes. He draws fouls, and he gets buckets. Like he is credit to DeMar DeRozan. That threw me for a loop. So we have number 1, DeMar. Number 2, KD at 1.18. Number 3, Kyrie at 1.14. Number 4, Zach LaVine at 1.13. So credit to him as well. He's taking a really, really big leap. I just thought that was one stat that I would share. But let's go to
Wait. I want to do one more thing about the play-in tournament.
Go ahead.
Which matchup would you guys want to see, like, out of all the teams, East or West? Like, which, head-to-head game would you, want to watch for, to go on to the playoffs?
Warriors and Mavs.
I like that. What about you, Ariel?
That's tough. I don't want to say the Heat in any matchup because I don't want them to be there. I think, you know what? I'm going to go with the Mavs as well, but I kind of like where it's at right now, where they play Memphis for the 7 seed. Um, I just like the way the Grizzlies play the game. I like their scrappiness. I like John Morant. He's, phenomenal. There's some warts in his game, but I think he's well on his way to being a really, really good player, obviously. Dylan Brooks is fun. He kills the heat, so I should hate him, but I'm trying to be unbiased, and I think he is a fire breather. When he's aggressive defensively, he's really good as well. Yeah, I mean, if you get an extra Luka game or two, who's going to complain? So I guess I'd go Dallas.
Luka will definitely complain. Like
Luka will complain,
and Mark Cuban will complain as well, and Kristaps will probably complain as well. But I would like to see that game as well. That would be fun. I think Memphis they're kind of like they're not West Coast really. Like they're pretty close to the East Coast, honestly. But they're kind of like the Western Conference Hornets in the sense that they're well coached, younger team that just they play the right way, and it's fun to watch.
I'd probably go Warriors Pelicans only to see Steph versus Zion because that's like star-studded as heck.
That'd be fun.
If I can pick Grizzlies Mavs because that would also be one of my picks, I'd go Warriors Pelicans. And low key, I wouldn't mind Grizz versus Spurs because they're like so similar in like how well coached they are and how they don't play like. They don't make mistakes. Like they know each other's strengths, and that would be fun to see. Like it would be like the Spider-Man pointing meme, and Texas is used to booing guys who look like Grayson Allen anyway. So if you know what I mean.
Memphis also did get Jaren Jackson Jr. back. I just want to put that out there. He can make a big difference on that Memphis team. But I do want to get to one thing that we like from around the league. I feel like I've been picking Marco first on a lot of these, so I'll go with Ariel first.
It's all good, buddy. Gonna go with Phoenix. I love the way they play. I love, they're just such a fun team to watch. Like I think I had mentioned earlier, Booker is trending towards being a legitimate, like offensive superstar, like one of the best scorers on planet Earth. I love his trajectory. They've got a bunch of really good wings from Bridges to Cam Johnson, to, of course, our guy,
Boss Man.
Jay Crowder, boss man. And, of course, the point guard, right? I mean, Chris Paul is ageless. It doesn't matter what situation you put him in, what team you put him on. He's going to lead your team to at least a playoff spot. I mean, look at the roster that he took to the playoffs last year in OKC. It's not a great team. They have a bunch of, solid but not spectacular pieces, and in the loaded Western Conference he dragged that team to, I believe, a 5 seed if I remember correctly. They were like a 4 or 5.
They were game 7 against the Rockets. Game 7.
They went 7 with James Harden and company. So I mean, Chris Paul's spectacular. You add him to a Phoenix team that missed the playoffs last year, though they did show, obviously they had that strong showing in the bubble. Booker still no justice. Stop it, Christian. Yeah, I mean, they had that great showing in the bubble where they went 8-0. It still wasn't enough for them to get into the playoffs, and I think that's a little bit ridiculous, but it is what it is. And they've built on that. Adding Chris Paul has taken that team to the next level. So, yeah, I think I love what Phoenix has done. I don't really know if I buy them as having enough juice to get out of the West, but I think they can make a run for sure. They can get to the conference finals. Will they? I don't know. But I have a level of trust in them that I definitely haven't had in a while, of course, in the Phoenix Suns. So that's Chris Paul's effect to me, and that's Devin Booker's improvement.
Yeah, no, they've been really, really good. And I'm high on the Clippers. We'll talk about this in future episodes when we kind of talk more about the playoffs. But I think the Suns actually match up really, really well against the Clippers. And that is a matchup that I would love to see in like the second round of the Western Conference playoffs. But Marco, your thoughts on the Suns or one thing that you like from around the league?
A quick note about the Suns. Mikal Bridges is the best young 3-and-D wing in the league right now, probably. In terms of role players, he's like the perfect role player, and I love watching him every night. And he's like, I don't know, there's something of, he's like the modern, like, new age Andre Iguodala almost. Tyrese Halliburton is going to probably be better than him in the future, but for right now, Mikal Bridges is like one of my favorite guys to watch.
Agreed.
My favorite thing, I saw earlier on Twitter, somebody was arguing that the Sixers may regret not getting Mikal Bridges because they traded him for Zaire Smith. And they said, well, I would regret more passing on Dante DiVincenzo. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is the worst take I've ever seen.
It's horrible.
But okay, sliding off of Phoenix real quick. They didn't help your Heat fans out here today, though. They lost to Boston as we're recording this. But I'm going to go with De'Aaron Fox. He deserves to get his flowers for this season, man. Especially he needs those flowers to cover up the stink of the Kings right now. He's putting up 25-7 and 4 boards pretty much this year, and he's getting to the rim at insane levels, and he's finishing at elite levels. His finishing is up there with big men and Zion Williamson, and the fact that he drives so much, he averages almost 20 drives a game, which is unheard of. But for a guard, I mean, that's still unheard of to me. And the 3-point shooting isn't there this year, but he's at least taking them. And I like that he's taking them without hesitation. And that's giving him more areas to operate in terms of which avenue he's going to take, which things he's going to exploit out of the defenses. I like that he's taking the 3-pointers with more confidence. It definitely helps expand his game. And he's still shooting 47% from the field despite his 3-point percentage being at only 32%. He's still he's so fun to watch too. I have a comparison to him. He's to me, he's if Zion Williamson, let's say if De'Aaron Fox took the super soldier syndrome, he would be Zion Williamson. Because they're so similar to me. They're both they drive to the rim and you feel you can stop them because you're going under the screen against them. You're not afraid of their shooting right now. But it doesn't matter. They still find a way to get to the rim. Zion isn't even driving as much as Zion or as Fox is, which you would think they would be closer to each other. But they're Zion. That's actually 7 drives less a game, which is actually kind of insane to me. And they both play a similar because they both can handle the rock too. Obviously, Fox is more of a point guard because he is a point guard. He operates more in pick and rolls. But I like the way that New Orleans has given the ball to Zion out on the perimeter more. That gives him more of a avenue to operate his pick and rolls too. And I like that they have small guards screen for him. It's actually something that I want Miami to do with Bam Adebayo. And yeah, they just remind me so much of each other. It helps that they're both left-handed too. And they both operate in so little space considering the teams around them. They don't have spacers De'Aaron Fox has more spacers, but he still doesn't have that kind of space that you would want a guard like him to have a 5-out offense. They've been playing this on Whiteside still. They're starting.
Shameful.
That's the same way that Zion is stuck with Steven Adams, but at least Steven Adams can set a decent screen. But he's still the fact that Zion is still finishing inside with Steven Adams clogging up the lane is insane to me, which is why it's pretty astounding the way that De'Aaron Fox is finishing inside with Hassan Whiteside and Chris Silva clogging up the lane. Actually, Chris Silva is actually playing for them, believe it or not. I saw him play yesterday. Just the way they're also really physical. When you meet them at the rim, they they maneuver their bodies crazy. They can withstand the contact. You give them the first contact, they're still gonna I'm gonna move my hand in the middle of the air to the left side where your arm's not, and your arm's already coming down as a defender, and they still finish. It's insane to me. I love watching both of them, and I think De'Aaron Fox deserves more love this year. They need to fire Luke Walton and free my mans.
Yeah, I agree. And I think De'Aaron Fox kind of flying under the radar, like you've been saying, he does 100% deserve his flowers. I think this is pretty similar to kind of what development Devin Booker has had over the last few years, in the sense that this is not the same play style. They're different players, different whatever. But I think the sense that they are both players that are stuck on bad teams, but they really have not been given the credit, but they have their own development into almost a borderline young superstar. I don't guess you can't qualify them as full-on superstars, but like they're in the upper echelon of the league at their position, which is a huge accomplishment in and of itself. So yeah, absolutely giving credit to De'Aaron Fox. I want to touch on a team that I was going to touch on the Hawks. And then Trae Young went down. I don't know exactly what's going to go there, but give the Hawks their flowers. Nate McMillan has done a fantastic job with that role. I just want to say that about the Hawks. But the team that I'm going to talk about today is one that maybe Heat fans won't like that much. I know my guy, Ricky J. Mark, will. The New York Knicks.
No, God, please.
Yes, ma'am. You're an idiot.
The New York basketball Knicks have actually been playing really, really, really good basketball, and I want to give them their flowers because I believe they've won 8 straight since acquiring Derrick Rose. They are 22-13. They're number 3 in defensive rating, so they have an elite trait to hang their hat on when they go into the playoffs. They are 15th in offensive rating since then and number 7 in net rating over the last 35 games. That is quite an impressive feat on quite a large sample size. Julius Randle, shout out to him, probably going to win most improved player if he's not getting that already. Trae injury is not serious. Yes, but at the same time, ankle injuries are a bit like iffy. I don't know if they're going to push it for him because they pretty much have already made the playoffs. Like they did their work to get there. I think they might try to make sure he's 100% so they can compete. But back to Julius Randle. Shooting above 40% from every single area on the court. That's above the break threes, corner threes, mid-range, non-restricted area. It's been really, really good from Julius Randle. And I want to touch on RJ Barrett because he's someone that was slandered a lot in his rookie season, being a 19-year-old. Obviously, he did not have the most perfect season, but I think someone that RJ Barrett could maybe eventually amount to become is maybe not mentality-wise, but in terms of play style, he kind of reminds me of a young Jimmy Butler, which is crazy to say. I'm not saying he's going to become Jimmy Butler, but you look at RJ in year 2, which is when he's been given that starting role, and Jimmy in year 4 when he was given that started role. So RJ is 20, Jimmy is 25 in this scenario. RJ averaging 17, 6, and 3 with 38.6% from 3. Jimmy, as a 25-year-old, averaging 26 and 3 on 37.4% from 3. So almost identical stats, playing a ton of minutes under Tom Thibodeau. Obviously, Jimmy Butler's mentality is what sets him apart, and that is where RJ Barrett would need to get to. But he is just 20, I believe either 20 or 21 years old. So he's got a lot of room to grow. I don't want to say that he's going to be Jimmy Butler and whatever. I just want to give him his flowers for playing really, really well after having what was not a great start to his career last year. I want to give a shout out to the Knicks for the regular season success that they've been having. I'm iffy on their prospects in the playoffs, depending on who they match up with. I think if they start to slide with these next few games, that they have a bit of a tougher road. It would be interesting to watch them play against a team like Brooklyn. I think Brooklyn Knicks would be like the perfect kind of almost rivalry to rekindle right now because the Knicks are on the up. The Nets are really, really, really good. So I would like to see that. That's just my Knicks talk. I want to give them their credit. They've been playing great defense, and RJ deserves a little bit of respect.
I'll give credit to the Knicks improving their 3-point shooting like crazy. Like they've actually been on a tear recently in 3-point shooting. And the thing about the Nets and the Knicks thing, it's crazy how it's so similar to the Mets and the Yankees because the Knicks fans talk about the Nets more than probably Nets fans talk about the Nets.
Absolutely.
They get so annoyed when you bring them up, and like, I get it. It's like if Orlando, I guess, got a big 3 all of a sudden, but even then, Orlando wasn't like Brooklyn, like that. It's a little brother syndrome, pretty much. But the other way around, it's like big brother syndrome. It's weird because you're the Knicks. You're not supposed to like care this much about another team, but you do. I always found that weird.
Knicks fans parading in the street after an 8-game win streak was really, really, really funny to me. I guess they haven't tasted success in a long time, so this is kind of like how they celebrate. I'm not a Knicks fan, by the way. I'm just giving a team their flowers for playing good basketball and putting it on TV, so I've been able to watch them over the last few games. It's still Heat in 5. Oh, it has been, always will be. That's not a question. Maybe even Heat in 4. I think I would love for the Heat to play against the Knicks in a series, but I would love to see them play against the Nets because stylistically, the Knicks do everything that the Nets don't want to play against. Like they score inside, they have physical players. Julius Randle just plays bully ball for 48 minutes. RJ Barrett tries to play bully ball for 48 minutes. And Tom Thibodeau, like he just wants his guys to play bully ball. And the Nets, they want to beat you with finesse, isolation, all that good stuff. I think it would be a good kind of clashing of styles in that series. Not saying that the Knicks would win, but maybe they win a game or two in that series. And kind of remind me of like the 2017 Nets or 2018 Nets where they make a little bit of noise early in the season and then they make the playoffs, losing round one, and then they're on the up and up. Area.
I just want to jump in real quick on the Knicks. I do agree with a lot of what you said, but I kind of feel like they're probably one of the teams that nobody wants to see in the first round for a couple of reasons.
Yeah, definitely.
Reason one being they are, like you said, phenomenal defensively. Tibbs coach teams are usually really good defensively, and that's a team that I, as a Heat fan, and I'm sure most other fan bases, as whatever team they're rooting for, want nothing to do with in round one. The Knicks defend like crazy, and again, Julius Randle has taken the leap this season. He has transformed his game. He is a scorer who can score from anywhere on the court. He plays bully ball. He gets to the rim. He's got the three-point jumper that he gets to from catch and shoot or off the bounce. It doesn't really matter. He's just, they've kind of put him in a position to succeed, and he's done a really good job with it. But a lot of it is on him, adding all these other areas and all these other just things to his bag that he didn't really have in the past.
Yeah.
So props to him. He's become a really good player. He's still not better than Chris Bosh was, and I don't want to hear that nonsense. But the Knicks are a team that I want nothing to do with in the first round, and I think if they get the right matchup, they may win that series.
Which is crazy. That we did not expect this to be year one of Tom.
An idiot sandwich.
This is a cast of misfits that are fitting together in a beautiful way, and honestly, it's been fun to watch. Like, I know as Heat fans, I shouldn't be rooting for them. I wasn't old enough for the whole Heat-Knicks rivalries anyways, so I appreciate good basketball when I see it. I appreciate the Knicks right now. But we are Heat fans, and I think it's time to talk about the Miami Heat. So, man, if you want to throw up that graphic, we're going to have this little segment at the end of every single one of these. We're going to call it the Culture Corner, maybe poking a little bit of fun of some other shows that we might have on this network, but this is the Culture Corner. So we're going to talk Miami Heat right now. They've won 3 straight. The real talk of the town is Tyler Hero. So I'm just going to throw these stats out at you because I think I found kind of maybe not the reason, but a pretty good explanation as to why he's had such a hard fall off in the middle of the year. It goes back to that injury on primetime against the Los Angeles Lakers, I believe on February 20th, maybe February 19th, in the second quarter against Alex Caruso. Before that, so from December 1st up until February 19th, Tyler Hero was averaging 17.4 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game, 3.9 assists per game, 2.6 turnovers, 34% from 3 on 6.1 attempts per game, 77% from free throw on 2.5. Pull-up shooting was also not that bad. He was shooting 38% or 39% on 7.2 attempts a game, 46% effective field goal percentage, catch and shoot 38% on almost 3 attempts a game. He was driving 11.6 times a game. So a lot of aggression in terms of like letting the ball fly with how he was playing early in the year. And then since then, 13 points per game, 3.8 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game. The turnovers are down 1.5, shooting 31% from 3. Pull-up shooting has been down to 35.3% on 4.8 attempts. Catch and shoot is down to 30.9% on 2.8 attempts from 3 a game, and drives are down to 8.3. So I'm not making excuses for the kid. He's not played up to par, but I think maybe the expectations that we had going into the season should have been adjusted a little bit. I'm questioning his role, but I just want to know, Marco, like, how are you feeling about this whole Tyler Hero saga that I guess has happened with Heat fans over the last, say, few weeks?
Wow. I guess I see where the frustration is, but I also sometimes I'm like, this is a little too much because this is a second-year guy, but everybody accelerated his timeline, like outside of his like control, pretty much. Everybody expects him to be something he's not in the second year of his professional career, which has been like messed up by so much around him. You know, the COVID protocols. He's gotten hurt a lot. A quick turnaround, so we didn't have a training camp. It's like you guys need to slow down and ease your expectations. I've come to do that. I had high expectations too, but I realized this is a kid picked at number 13 who was being compared to Devin Booker already. I'm like, okay, maybe we should have eased up on that. Like, I understand where you're coming from. He's not making his open threes. That's been like one thing that's been annoying me is he hasn't made his open threes like
and he's hesitating
last year. And like he's gotten good shots too, like, and he's passed up good shots.
Yes, that's my problem.
And like I don't get that either. I think his pull-up game will get there eventually. I think he'll be a pretty good pull-up shooter. I get the frustration, but I think it goes too far sometimes. I will say his defense does need to improve, and he does need to earn his minutes. I don't think he needs to be given his minutes just because of what the team expects him to become. Like, I feel like they're giving him these minutes like thinking he's going to be part of the future, like not because he's earning them. He does earn them like some nights, and I want to say he was on a pretty good stretch up until that road trip came about. Like that Portland, after that Portland game, it's just recency bias as well. Like he's had a couple of really bad games recently, bad stretches. It's going to be an up and down year. It's a second-year guy that's not like a good creator off the dribble. He's not a guy who's going to give you isolation offense. Or not good isolation offense. You can't get past his man without a screen. He'll eventually get better. I don't get the overabundance of like, this guy sucks. You should have traded him for blah 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 and all this. It's going to be fine. He's going to be a fine role player. You should have expected him to be a fine role player, but it's just the season with a team who wants to compete, and like they can't wait on him to get where they think he's going to be for too long, because you're on Jimmy Butler's timeline. That's also the frustrating part, and he's not going to be on Jimmy Butler's timeline, and he's kind of let him down this year at times because Jimmy likes him. He likes what like he's always said he's like his competitive nature and all that, and now there's like these thoughts about him not being like focused and like that have come out, and that's also probably going to lead to more frustration. I think everybody needs to ease up on him, but also I also don't get people that have been overprotective of him. Yeah. You still need to hold him accountable, like Alex Toledo holds Spo accountable. You still want to reward the guys that are playing well. Like, you can't reward guys just because you're so used to rewarding them. Like, if he's having trouble out there, you replace him with Duncan Robinson, or you bring Kendrick Nunn in. Like, it's the thing that Spo always preaches about. You need to earn your minutes, and like, I get why some people might think that he's not earning his minutes as well.
Yeah, I think earning minutes is the perfect way to put it. Ariel, we'll close with you. Your thoughts on the Tyler Hero saga?
My thoughts on the Tyler Hero thing is, like Marco said, he hasn't quite lived up to expectations. I don't want to speculate too much on what's happened in terms of like off the court stuff and whatever other various factors. Definitely we know about the whole COVID season and what has played into the scheduling and the shorter off season, and all of that stuff definitely affects him. But frankly, we are not necessarily in the business of playing guys who don't merit the time. Now, I'm not saying that he is a bad basketball player, but frankly, if you're the Heat and your goal is to compete this season, if he's not cutting it and he's getting killed on defense and he's having game after game that are inefficient, and then he sprinkles in, short stretches where he's really good, I just don't see it. I don't see that. I don't see him deserving playing time over guys like Kendrick Nunn. Definitely not a guy like Duncan Robinson. If Victor Oladipo comes back, I think Spo has to do a really good job of just, giving guys minutes based on the meritocracy. And that's all it should come down to. And definitely the developmental reps help him, but it is what it is. You're trying to win right now.
Yeah, no, if I could print out what you said, put that quote behind my head and just have it framed in my room, I think I would do that, because you said you articulated that perfectly, and I appreciate the way that you just said that, because it should be a meritocracy. Like, earn what you are given. Like, that's what he needs to do. And I mean, hopefully he ends up turning it around, but I think right now we just need some semblance of production from the guards. With all that being said, this is the end of the Full Court Press, our very first episode. Thank you guys in the comments for tuning in with us. This is an extension of 5 on the Floor. It may be on the podcast feed. Make sure you check out that podcast if you're a Heat fan. And thank you guys for supporting us in the comments. We will be back soon.